Thanks for joining, everybody. My name is Christina Ung. I'm a part of the marketing team, and I help facilitate these KVAs. Thanks for joining. You should have gotten a link an hour ago from Zoom to join, and that let you know what session was coming up. If this is your first KVA, we send out monthly newsletters now. We used to do them weekly, now we do them monthly. So at the beginning of the month, you'll receive all of the upcoming sessions. So check them all out. We have them prepared for you. So you'll get one in about 2 weeks, letting you know what sessions are going to be in September. But every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, you'll get an email from Zoom letting you know what the topic is. And as you can see today, this is part 2 of our transitioning from 2D to 3D series. This session is focused on content creation, and Greston Donovan led this session for us. However, he is out today, so we have Javier doing the Q&A. If you have questions during the session, go ahead and put them in the Q&A tab. We also have the chat tab open as well. But this is about a 20-minute recording for you guys. So thanks for joining. This is part 2. In a minute, I'll put part 1, a link if you want to go back and watch that. These all can be watched out of order, though, so don't worry about that. And lastly, after the session, you'll receive a link on your Safari tab, your Google Chrome tab. Let us know how we're doing. It's a survey, so let us know how we're doing. If you have feedback, topics you want to see covered, anything like that, just let us know. And I'm going to go ahead and move over to the recording.
Hello and welcome to KVA. So my name is Grayston, and we're going to be talking about how to move from a 2D environment into a 3D. So a little bit about myself. I've been a solutions engineer here at KETIV for a little over 9 years now. Done customer support, been on the delivery and automation team, and then I spent a fair amount of time also internal operations. My background is more of a mechanical design engineering background in the oil and gas and industrial manufacturing area. A little bit of a fun fact about myself is I started using Inventor in 2004. That really dates me, but you know what? I took a pretty fun little engineering class in high school, and really that kind of built my career. So this KVA is really part of I guess there's a 4-episode series that we're kind of doing that's moving through how to get into the 2D from 3D design world. So we're talking the last episode around planning for things and getting ready for the 3D environment. Today we're going to be covering more of the content creation and some of the critical areas that we feel you should know. The next 2 episodes are going to be around crafting and effective design. So, hey, how do we start actually implementing these things? And then finally, we'll get into, what everybody asks us for is automations. How do we automate some of our processes? So that's going to be a pretty cool episode as well. So as I say, first thing was preparing and planning. The next area is going to be on the content creation portion. Then we're going to start looking at developing those workflows and then the integration automation. But before we get into that, I just really want to talk about KETIV and kind of the different areas that we have started to, I guess, work with. When I started at the company, we were really a design and CAD automation house. A lot of training, mentoring, kind of doing some automation projects, but it was mainly CAD focused. As really our customer needs expanded, we started getting more into the simulation space. We start getting to electronics, heat, stress, really anything with our customers, getting things faster time to market is really important. So we started building out really that area of the business. Then we started noticing, we were talking more and more to the engineering teams, how frequently they were being pulled into doing quoting. So we took that as an opportunity to start fleshing out kind of a CPQ area. So we talk about sales automation. How do we rapidly respond to customers so we can get quotes out to them? And then further down the line, we started talking about advanced manufacturing, additive manufacturing, some of those more complex ways of manufacturing products outside of just doing CNC and welding. Last but not least, data management has been a key area of KETIV's business for a long time. Consider ourselves vault experts through and through, but we started talking a little bit more about third-party integrations, and that's where we have the KETIV Data Bridge, how we can link all of these areas together to make sure you have a nice clean data thread. So now that you know a little bit about our business, I'm going to hop into kind of the agenda for today. So one, I just want to reiterate some of the preparation items that you want to take into account. We'll be talking about defining standards. The standards are everything when it comes to 3D. So we'll go through some models, drawings, and properties. I'm going to talk a little bit about developing libraries and the difference between, say, a template and then utilizing Content Center. And last but not least, we're going to have data management and releases and revisions. Those are, say, arguably one of the most important areas, especially with using a 3D environment. So for preparation, I broke this down into two major categories. One, reviewing your as-is state. So all of your 2D drawings, kind of how you exist as an organization today, and then giving yourself some time to start capturing those standards. I liked to compare preparation with CAD as like maybe with a car. The more time you spend sanding down before you paint, the smoother the paint's going to come out with. And it's the exact same way with prep, getting ready for 3D. You want to start looking at really frequently used drawings, anything that your team is using on a day-to-day basis. It's really good to keep account of that. Make sure your workflows are documented, and this not necessarily how you create drawings, but the way that those drawings move forward. How do I start something? How do I find something? A lot of that information you can start pulling into the 3D space. And once you have those, the workflows ironed out, you also want to make sure you have your documentation standards also being captured. Line styles, how you do dimensions, if it's ordinate or not, what type of information you want to put inside your title blocks, all of that is really important. For the design space, you want to start looking at, business related properties. How do I do my stock numbers? How do I put my part numbers in there? Like what kind of information I need to be fed into bill of materials. Those are all really important. Measurement standards, if you're working in millimeters, inches, depending on the type of machining that you're doing. If it's 16th inch, you want to start looking at that stuff. Naming conventions is extremely critical. You're no longer dealing with really a 2D AutoCAD drawing anymore. You have 3D models, and you have a lot of interrelationships between those 3D models. So making sure you can find the right part and you're not duplicating effort or even changing the wrong thing will go a long way. And start thinking about what you have for dynamic or static data. This is the largest departure from doing things in 2D because you don't have like parametric interfacing anymore. I mean, it's like when you move into 3D, you can start thinking about, I might have a part, how can this part change so I don't have to keep redoing this every single time? On the defining standards area for modeling, consistency is everything. Thankfully, I've worked on a couple places that went from a 2D to 3D environment. And what you'll end up finding is everybody has their own way of doing things, no matter what. And, it's good to have meetings maybe once a week or so where the whole team can kind of come together and you can collaborate on how you want to go about doing models. But some big areas that you want to start looking at would be usage of origins, making sure everybody has the same methodology of how to use origin planes. This helps out a lot when it comes to doing constraints, especially when building assemblies. If you're going to insert somebody else's part into your assembly, it's nice to know that it's all constrained the same way. Modeling tools kind of come to an agreement on how you want to model things, how you use sketches, extrusions, or you'll use extrusions every single day when it comes to doing 3D parts. Is the main way you create things, and also doing holes. Those are the three big areas that I find which you'll have the most variance. Some people like putting circles inside of a plate and using that for a hole. Some people like using center points. You kind of have to figure out what everybody wants to do in that front. We can give you recommendations if you need it, but definitely start having these conversations around sketching, extrusions, and holes. The next thing that this kind of goes into is also creating assemblies. Start, really coming together and being consistent on how you do constraints, how you want to do your orientations, and then also creating design views. Each of these areas will make you more efficient in how you put together and create these assemblies. But also, if somebody's out of the office and you need to get something out, somebody else can go inside and work on your project and you know exactly how it works. They don't have to spend, a day figuring out how you put this thing together. Just these small areas will make you a lot more successful in moving from a 2D to 3D environment. Drawings. Drawings in the name of the game. My fabrication intent with really being in a 3D environment is everything. You want to start looking about how you want to define your drawing methodology. Some places have a one part, one drawing environment. I create a piece of plate, create a drawing for that piece of plate, boom, I'm done. Other places you'll have more like a general arrangement detail views. I want to show the upper level assembly and then have all of the details being associated to that versus having a whole slew of separate drawings. It really depends on group to group or company to company, but look at how your core values are going to be for doing drawings. That'll give you a lot of guidance moving forward. Another area that I like to focus on too, because it's a large departure from doing things in 2D, would be parametric views. Inventor being in a 3D space, it's no longer lines, arcs, and circles on a page. It's being built from something. So you have some new capabilities there around filtered bill of materials. I don't have to manually create bill of materials anymore. Great, but you can also take a look at combining details views with bill of materials, so the shop can see that, hey, for this given subassembly that I'm making, I'm only going to be utilizing these 6 parts out of the entire bill of material. And there's some tools that are in place for that. Hidden lines. Sometimes when you're doing things in 2D, it's hard to keep track of all the hidden lines, especially on complex assemblies. You don't really have that problem anymore in 3D because you can start including that information. It'll populate for you automatically. So you can show in greater detail just what might be behind this piece of plate or some of the structural steel. Detail pages. You are no longer restricted by what you can draw. The more detail, the better, giving shop better capabilities of being able to look at a drawing, see some different angles. I mean, add detail. It's not going to be a huge lift on your side. You probably have to add in a few dimensions here or there, but it does save some time when the shop's running up to talk to you because they can't figure out exactly what's on the page. So again, when you're looking at drawings, fabrication intent is number 1, and then utilize what the software can give you through parametric views. Last but not least is properties. I can't stress this enough, but use properties wherever you can. You don't want to put information just in there for the sake of it, but critical information such as part numbers, stock numbers and descriptions are very important in how you can start maybe searching for these things later on down the road. The cool thing about being in a parametric space is you can also utilize those values to make parametric formulas. So if you have a particular way that you like to label your plate, if you have intelligent part numbers, even if you have never thought about that before, you can use these formulas that are inside the components to actually auto-populate all of your properties. You want to start thinking about how this information is going to be flowing downstream to your bill of materials, your ERP packages, even out to the shop floor. You can create custom properties to help out with work orders. So if you're doing transmittal packages, those kind of things. Utilize the fact that you can start pulling this information in from 3D models and even incorporating those inside of your 2D drawings. All right, so now that we talked about standards and you've gone through all of this, we're going to get into libraries. And I'm going to talk about the next couple of slides interchangeably, but things are really broken down into one of 2 pieces. You have templates, which really serve as a start point for anything you do. And then you have the content center, which I'll get to in the next slide, but that's going to be talking a little bit more about standard purchase parts. I like to think of templates as complex as you want them to be, but also as simple as you need them to be. I've got a picture up here that shows just the standard kind of templates that come with Inventor, but you can really expand upon these. I've seen these being used in the sense of, hey, if I've got to start a SA36 plate, I just have a plate template in there that my team can start from. Already has the properties built, the information's already set up, so they can just change some parameters and then it updates the drawing that's associated with it, right? So it's a nice, easy way of starting something. Or you can get as complex as I have a specific assembly that I need to use on every single project that I have, but it's really only, they can get up, flanges, some piping, maybe some different fittings and things on it. I can create a template for that anybody at the team can go ahead and start from that, make some changes, and it's already being saved off as its own unique instance. So I would really start thinking about what you have that's frequently used across a group and look at building really templates for those. You can create drawing packages, you can create drawing pages, you can really start expanding out all these areas for templates. It's about speeding up your design, making sure everybody's working the same way, and improving that quality. In other areas, establishing standards for your designs, make sure you have those business related properties. You can put those in there, measurement standards. Again, it's all being controlled through the templates. And then the same thing with the naming conventions. You can sort all through the templates. So use templates, expand on those. Don't just stick with the out of the box. And again, if that's an area that you think you should use some help with, you can always reach out to us. Content Center. I love Content Center. I don't think I really have a bad thing to say about it. I use it a lot. It's really for anything that is standard, which you probably won't have an associated drawing with or won't be really changing, but mainly it's being used for like purchase parts, bolts, fittings, structural steel. You can set really everything up inside of this Content Center. It's a standardized area that the team can always refer back to find things. It's completely independent from, say, like finding stuff in Vault, and everybody's working off the same area. It's extremely configurable. So if you have a bolt, you can have all the different sizes, you can remove things. It's really being controlled through Excel. And then you can import that Excel sheet. It comes out of the box with a large amount of standard parts, probably more than you will ever need. So we do recommend kind of cleaning some of that stuff up. If it's, like I said, best utilized for configurable parts, you don't want to create a bunch of one-offs. You can, but I'd recommend using templates for that. The Content Center is best used when you have like I said, a bolt and I want to change like 10 different sizes or even fittings and purchase parts. And this last one we'll note is like you can expand to having internally designed parts, but you might find that more in a use case where you have that one part, one drawing, or your ERP system already has those drawings being uploaded to it. So you don't have to worry about creating those drawings ever again. And then again, you can also populate all of this information with your business related properties, measurement standards, naming conventions. It's fully configurable. So really leverage templates in the Content Center wherever possible. Definitely look at those things. Releases and revision. This is, I do a lot of business process assessments. So I'll go on site and I'll talk to companies. And releases and revisions is frequently the thing that comes up where they're running into issues. And it's not necessarily the creation of a revision but it's the communication of it. A lot of the time 3D is implemented, you get a PDM implemented, and you're doing the check-in, check-out. Great, we're not overwriting drawings anymore. Awesome, that's great. But actually tracking revisions outside of history, making sure the bill of materials are being updated, I mean, that's really where you start finding a lot of the snags. And it's amazing how much manual effort actually goes into doing a revision and release process. If you were to sit down, take a look at this and sketch some stuff out, you'd probably find, I don't know, on average, like 10 to 15 manual steps that it's taking to go from production back up to engineering and then communicating that back downstream that it's been updated. So when you're starting to look at data management, really define your process, like focus on communication, how that information is being shared in whatever way possible with all the different groups. Like you could have mechanical, electrical, production, even manufacturing. Like those groups need to come together to make sure they're building the right thing. Thankfully, you have a PDM solution. There's a ton of them out there. We focus on Vault internally, but you leverage that PDM to start tracking those drawing revisions, like the bill of material revisions, like there's tools in there for that. Protect your intellectual property, making sure people can't just get onto your OneDrive and kind of start pulling your stuff. You can create user groups, different things to start sharing that information with people you want to, and make sure people that aren't supposed to see it don't. And try to break down your release workflows in very distinct steps. I've seen some places where they have a very, very complex release workflow. And from a management standpoint, it gets a little intense. Focus on specific use cases of like initial release. You want to do a updated release. There's things like categories and different user groups you can use inside of your PDM to really flesh that out. Well, as a summary and a wrap up here, I can prepare as much as you can. Sit down, spend a month or two, like really work this stuff out before you actually make that jump into a 3D environment. Leverage your partners like us to start helping you guide like really guide you through what that's going to look like. Make sure you discuss processes and intent. Voice of customer is a real thing, and that's not necessarily just your customers. Who's getting this information internally? How are they going to utilize it? And what do we want to make sure that they're going to have? Standardize wherever possible. I understand not everything can be standardized, and a lot of our customers have highly configurable and complex pieces of machinery or really a product. You can still find areas inside of there where you can standardize those and like try to simplify some stuff. And last but not least, keep your data clean. Dirty data is where you're going to find a lot of mistakes, find a lot of rework, trying to find things, and it becomes a mess rapidly. You'd be amazed at how quickly your storage is going to fill up with just stuff you'll probably never use again. Make sure you know how to find all that information.